I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the World Series of Poker starts this week. It is happening. Believe it or not, I can't believe it myself. It's already here. Feels like it should be another 6 months away or something, but it's here. And the Colossus is this weekend. Last year they got like 22,000 entries for the Colossus. Who knows how many tens of thousands this year. It's gonna be a lot of people. I'm pretty stoked, I'm pretty excited. 7 weeks of just games everywhere, all over Vegas. Tournament season is upon us. The only real time that I hop into tournaments is during the World Series of Poker. So I thought, what better time than to have a little WSOP warm-up video session, preparation, chat. So this will be Andrew's do's and don'ts for WSOP success. Let's get into it. Do assess what your overarching goals are for the entire series and then plan accordingly. Most players attending the WSOP are going to fall into one of two categories. They're going to be looking to grind it out, make the money, make as much money as they can, stay in that grind, or they're going to be looking for a fun life experience. So let's take a look at some of the do's and don'ts for each of those categories. First, under the grind it out category of WSOP attendee. Number 1, do plan to work your ass off. This sort of goal shouldn't really be that different from your everyday sort of approach to the grind, to playing poker for a living. In my opinion, if you are playing the low to medium stakes, you should already be working your ass off in general. You should be putting in a lot of hours. The hours that you're not playing, there should be some portion of those hours dedicated to studying. And you should basically be putting very few hours into your social life, sadly. And as unsexy and as unfun as that sounds, the vast majority of your hours should be spent on the grind. The difference here is that you have this huge player pool in front of you in this town at your disposal. So you're gonna be able to enter any casino and there's just gonna be a ton of games going. You wanna take advantage of that while you can, while it's right here in front of you. You don't have to travel for games. You wanna be taking advantage of that while you can. So you just need to limit your social time, limit the going out, plan on putting in a lot of hours on the grind. Number 2, don't get burnt out. There's a very fine line, I think, between grinding it out, staying on the grind, being dedicated to the grind, and just working to the point of exhaustion/depression. The general graph of excitement that happens during those 7 weeks, you start up very high, excitement level is peaking right off the bat. The Colossus is that first weekend, so like I said, 22,000 people playing a tournament. Excitement level is way up there. As time goes on, you enter week 3, 4, 5, you start to get down here. The grind continues on. There's some really fun big tournaments that happen towards the middle of the series. Those help on the weekends. The weekends are for sure still fairly energetic. Midweek, week 5, you're in the trough of sorrow with a lot of other poker players who are probably not doing too well. You only end up cashing, the good players even, they only end up cashing maybe, what, 20% of the time in tournaments? So that's a lot of losses for the majority of people, let's be honest. So the energy level can really take a dip. Main event time. Do you have any do's and don'ts for the people of the world entering the World Series of Poker?
Bring a sweater. Bring a sweatshirt.
Okay, Boosie says bring a sweater or a sweatshirt. She's right, the Rio gets mad cold. So towards the end, when the main event is suddenly here, the excitement level quickly ramps up. We're out of the trough of sorrow. Things are happening, things are good, things are exciting again. But in the meantime, try and get some fresh air. Try not to get burnt out. Like I said, very fine line. Just try and take stock of your general well-being. Take a day off if you need to. Perhaps a Tuesday or Wednesday. Those are the slowest days of the week. As usual, gotta do what you gotta do. Number 3, do come up with at least a tentative plan for what you plan on playing, what stakes, what games, tournaments, cash games. It doesn't have to be set in stone. Your plans do not have to be set in stone. You can always change. You can always switch up the game plan, but try to have at least an idea of what games and which tournaments you want to play. Also, try and figure out ahead of time, after you figured out what you want to play, whether or not you're going to be needing to sell any action in those stakes, in those tournaments, in those games. We could make a whole nother video talking about selling action, so I don't want to get too into it, go down that road too far. Everyone has their own preferences. Some people want 100% of their own action all the time. Other people are happy to mitigate some of the risk by selling pieces to their fellow poker playing friends. I can see it both ways. I can see always wanting to have all of your action and only playing the stakes that your own personal bankroll allows for. I can also see diversifying a little bit and selling some action here and there so that you can play some various higher stakes. If I do give one suggestion, it's to basically play your regular stakes, but also keep an eye on the stake level above that you normally play. Try and sit in that game once or twice at least, just so you can kind of judge how that is. With so many games going on around town, with a player pool being so big, that should generally mean that the games are at least somewhat better. More games means more selection, usually means better games. So you at least want to try and find out. Give it a shot. Again, I have no problems selling a small piece of the action to some friends so that the jump up to that next stake level isn't quite so big. It's less of a jump. And if I feel like I have an edge and I end up winning, just look at it as now you and your friends have more money to put at your collective disposal. I do think you want to be pushing yourself a little bit during these times, just a little bit. You just want to test the waters a little bit, give yourself a little bit of a nudge to get slightly out of your comfort zone. More risk usually means more money, more rewards. So you don't want to go overboard, but if there's any time to kind of inch yourself forward a little bit, I think this is that time. Number 4, do be willing to move around. As mentioned, more players equals more games, more game selection. So all over town there's going to be tons of games, especially on the weekends. There will be games all up and down the strip, as well as downtown in the Golden Nugget, maybe even Binion's, although I'm not too sure what's going on there these days. But lots of games everywhere. So I know a lot of people ask me, where is the best place to play cash games during the series? There is no one set goldmine location. If there was, the word would get out very quickly, and then that location would no longer be the goldmine because all the pros would be there. So, as always, you just have to take stock. Take stock of your game, assess the situation. If it's a little dry, not too much action happening, get up and move. Try another location. Number 5, don't be willing to go broke while trying to get rich quick. So there's a big difference to what I was talking about in number 3, where I said to push yourself a little bit. That is very different from firing away at the lotteries. Sure, you might end up hopping into a tournament if you're a cash game player like I am, who doesn't play tournaments very regularly, just because these tournaments will be very recreational heavy, especially at the $1,000 and 1.5K entry level. But even in those events, you're still only going to be cashing 20% of the time, I think it is. So you fire away at 2 or 3 of those, 3 1.5K tournaments, that's $4,500, ends up being a decent sized chunk for a 2-5 grinder. Again, I think it's fine to be selling a piece of the action to your poker playing colleagues. You can still have a decent shot at a pretty sizable score. These 1.5K tournaments, top prize, top 3 prizes, final table prizes, they get up there for sure. All that being said, don't put too big of a portion of the bankroll on the line for any one tournament or cash game situation. All right, let's hop into the other category of WSOP player / visitor under the headline, having a good experience. The opposite of the grinder. Number 1, do visit the Rio and don't be holed up in your hotel's poker room. This should be a bit of a no-brainer. Even if you are not planning on playing any of the bracelet events, you 100% need to go over to the Rio, visit the World Series of Poker Convention Center, take it all in, hear the sounds, see the sights, listen to all of those chips being shuffled on a room with hundreds of poker tables. Go check out the Amazon room where the TV table is set up. They got some other stuff set up this year that will be different that I haven't seen yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's new this year, and for sure make it over to the Rio. Number 2, don't be results oriented. You got to remind yourself that obviously winning is much more fun than losing. However, you are not there to grind out a living. You're not playing this game for a living. You are there to have a life experience. You're there to have fun. Don't base that experience around how much you won, how much you lost, whether you won or lost, whether you cashed in the tournament. If this is something that you've been looking to experience, it should be just the experience itself. It shouldn't be cashing in an event. Like I said, there's such little control over such a small window of poker playing. No control over that. Just take it all in and have a good time. Number 3, do say hi to your favorite TV poker pros, assuming they aren't seated in a high stakes cash game. Just about every poker pro is very friendly. They're always, just about always, willing to say hi. Of course, I'm no different, so if you see me, say hi. And whoever else you want to say hi to, don't be afraid to go up to them and say hello. You'll see a lot of them over there at the Rio. Number 4, do take time to just take in Las Vegas if you don't make regular trips here. Check out 1 or 2 of the bars or restaurants that I've listed, that I've mentioned in some of the other videos. Maybe do a little research. Look up your favorite cuisine on Yelp. See what's out there. See what looks interesting. Take a little time to not just be on the grind, on the poker grind. Take in Las Vegas a little bit if this isn't a regular destination for you. Number 5, just remember to have fun. See you guys there. All right, just taking a quick break out here on this lovely veranda. I don't know if it has a name, but right outside overlooking the pool, just down the hall somewhat from the poker room here at the B. Game is decent, so-so, I would say. Some good spots, some tough spots, pretty usual, but it seems like the high season, seems like it's here. Seems like the kickoff week for WSOP has already begun, and just looking around the room is packed, and there are 5 10 games going, and that's on top of 3 10-20 no limit games going as well. So that's a full slate of just about a full slate of 5 10 games. It's busy, especially for a Monday. Only one real hand to report so far, and in this hand there's a middle position limp, and I looked down at queen jack offsuit in the hijack, raises up to 40, trying to ISO the limper. Button calls and the limper calls, so 3 ways to a flop of jack 7-3 rainbow. Middle position checks, I bet 70, and both players call. Turn is the ace of clubs, which brings a backdoor flush draw. Middle position player checks again to me. I decide to slow down a little bit, maybe pot control. Not feeling like my hand is super strong relatively, so I decide to check, and the button checks as well. River brings the 8 of clubs and completes the backdoor flush draw. This time the middle position player bets out for $150. Pretty close spot, I think. We have 1 club, so we do block some flushes. Ace jack seems a little bit unlikely to me in this instance because he limped in and we have a jack. So that narrows it down a little bit, I think. There's lots of other hands that we could lose to. Could lose to some 2-pair holdings, some possible flopped sets, of course. I'm not sure if you would bet king jack here. I'm not sure if you would lead out for $150 with king jack. So between the price being reasonable and this player being an unknown and us blocking some good hands but obviously losing to some others, just kind of give it the shrug call, toss in the chips. The button folds behind me, which is I think a good thing, and the very good thing is that the middle position player announces nothing, rolls over 5-6, we take it down. Aside from that hand, nothing too interesting to report. Had ace-king a couple times in 3-bet pots and whiffed the board. Ended up having to fold. A couple different hands like that. Came up a few different times, a few different spots. So add all that up, and we are basically exactly even so far. I'm gonna head back in there, back to the grind. Planning on not staying too late. Hopefully I don't jinx that by saying it out loud, but been on a pretty good sleep schedule. I've been getting up at like 8 in the morning. Pretty solid, pretty impressive if you ask me. If we could stick to that, I'd be happy, because those tournaments, they start pretty early, you know? Let's wrap it up the session. Managed to not play for too long or too late. It's about 1 a.m. right now. Slightly longer than I wanted to play, but you know, these things happen, as you know. Just gonna take a walk down to the old conservatory, check in over there. Last time I saw it, there was some Japanese springtime scene. I assume it's probably the same thing, but we'll find out in approximately 5 minutes my time and 5 seconds your time. Turns out Japanese springtime still in full effect here at the Bellagio Conservatory. Japanese drum music happening full effect as well. Pretty dope stuff, I guess. I don't know, seems cool to me. Played for about 6 hours, so I guess medium length. Let's go over a couple quick hands here real quick before we call it a night. So first interesting one, there's an early position raised to 40. There's a middle position call, and I looked down at 5-6 of diamonds. I think you could lean towards either a raise or a flat in this spot. I think raising might be slightly better, and I would have leaned towards raising if the initial raise wasn't from a very good player from early position. So just trying to play a kind of a low variance route with the suited connector here. So I go ahead and flat. We go 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes pretty favorable. We flop the joint. Just drill it. Just drill the nuts right away. Unfortunately, no C-bet, and the middle position player checks as well, so I'm obviously not checking. On this wet of a flop, I put out a bet of $80. Probably could have sized a little bit bigger since it's so wet, coordinated, low flop. Initial raiser folds, and the middle position player calls. Turn is not exactly an ideal card. Turn is a 9 of spades, so brings the 3rd spade, further connects the board a little bit. We no longer have the best straight even. He checks it over to me, and a little bit of a decision between checking back for some pot control or continuing to bet, continue to charge some higher flush draws, some pair plus flush draw type hands. That's what I decided to do. I put out a bet. I think it keeps my range widest. I think I might cap myself a little bit if I check back. I don't know, that's just my thoughts. So I decided to keep betting, and I bet $170. Middle position player calls again. So off to a river card, and it's an offsuit 5. So there are now 4 to a straight, 3 to a flush, and he checks it over to us. So once again, decision to be made whether to bet or check. I think versus a lot of players, I would for sure put in a bet here. Versus this particular player, he hadn't been getting out of line at all. I hadn't played with him before, but he was playing very solid. He was up. Hadn't made too many missteps whatsoever. So versus this player type, I think checking back is reasonable because it seems like it's tough to get value from 2 pair. Obviously not 1 pair. Even a set might find a fold here. We're gonna value town ourselves versus a flush that decided to play somewhat passively. There's a higher straight out there. The 1-liner to a straight doesn't seem like we can get value from too much. So with that in mind, I decided to make a kind of a cautious check back. Obviously could be a little bit too cautious, but that's the route I chose, and he rolls over pocket 10s with the 10 of spades. We take it down. Was there value versus pocket 10s? Debatable. I mean, he was probably calling $10, right? So maybe some small value, but I kind of doubt it. So So lots of hands in between that one and the next one. A few pocket pairs here and there, pocket fours that whiff, pocket fives that whiff, some ace kings in 3-bet hands that go multi-way that whiff, all that stuff. Just a quick reminder there that all these hands that I'm sharing are not the only hands that I play. There's a pretty good amount of hands. I'm not sure what my my percentage of hands that I would play. Probably somewhere around 20%. It always depends though on the lineup. But anyway, the next interesting hand folds all the way to me in the small blind, and I look down at Queen Jack offsuit. Decided to come in for a raise. Versus some players, I'll probably just limp in and complete. I'm never folding, obviously. But versus this player, happy to play some pots with. So decided to come in for a raise, and I make it 40 to go. He makes the call. So the two of us are seeing a flop of 10-9 deuce. Pretty good flop for me, 2 overs plus open ender. I put in a C-bet with pretty good equity here versus any hand and make it $60, and he calls pretty quickly. Turn is a 6, which probably not that good of a card. Complete some hands that we don't have any blockers to. Probably a better card for him than it is for us. I just decided to check it. I'm not too sure what exactly the best possible line is in this spot, because I don't want to just check fold here. And in this case, he goes ahead and bets $200. Now it's really not that great of a spot, because if we check, call the turn, and whiff the river, we end up with queen high. I'm not sure check raising is that great of a line, because we don't block anything that could have really connected him on this board. Like I said, if we do happen to get snapped off here, I guess we have some equity. 8 outs isn't terrible, but I think I would prefer to take this line with some sort of a blocker in my hand. Check folding doesn't seem that great either, because like I said, we still have the open ender plus the potential with the 2 overcards. So there's decent money behind. There's well over $1,000 behind. I feel like if we do make our hand, we can get pretty good value in this exact situation. So not wanting to just give it up, I just decided to make the call and evaluate the river. River is pretty favorable. River's a king. So nuts once again. End up with the nuts on the river. I don't want to check it over to him in case he just has a 1-pair type hand and checks it back. I think we can go for value here with the lead out and expect to get called decent amount of the time from what I've seen so far in this game. So that's what I do. I decide to lead out, and I make it $520. My opponent thinks for a while, and then he kind of shrugs and tosses in the chips. So that's another $520 coming our way. Pretty good sized pot, and he lifts his cards up a little bit to kind of look at it and probably try and get some sympathy, because he shows, not really shows, but he lifts up his cards enough for a few of us to see 10 deuce offsuit for a flop 2 pair. So we weren't in very good shape there going into the river. The queen and the jack was no good for us, obviously, and we were dead to the straight. Like I said, a pretty favorable river, and we were able to get good value from it. But some run good there at the end to bail us out a little bit. It is about 2 a.m. now. So I'm gonna try and get to bed as soon as possible, stay on this schedule for as long as possible. A couple of things that I forgot, a couple of important things. First of all, shout out to everybody who came up and said hi to me. I won't be able to remember everyone's name, but we got Lewis, Jeff, Ari, several other guys. I'm sorry I can't remember everyone's name. Second thing is Vince, who sent me this note and this chip. Another cocktail waitress delivery, almost anonymously. We got your first name, we got Vince. So cheers so much for the green chip, man. That was super kind of you. And he sent this note along basically saying thank you for the vlogs. And he asked, what can the community do to help support you? Oh, he also says here, this is a small cut of my winnings. The green chip, small cut of his winnings. I'm glad you booked a win. Nice work. But what can the community do to help support me? I don't know. Maybe ask your local poker room manager if we can come film a vlog and film hole cards as well. Aside from that, I don't know. Just keep hanging out, keep sharing the videos, likes, thumbs up, Leave a comment down below, tell your friends about the videos. But in all seriousness, I don't know. I don't know if you guys need to do anything. Just keep hanging out, keep watching, and the previous mentioned things. But yeah, thanks so much for that. Last thing is, we won $760 in this session. So, pretty good session. I played for, like I said, about 5.5 to 6 hours, somewhere in there. All right, for real, I'm off this time. See you guys, you know where, just down the street. It's a little thing called the World Series of Poker.